Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar. We're going to start in a minute or two. All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Citrix Ready webinar. We are bringing you yet another interesting topic for the discussion today. We're going to learn the industry's only embedded intelligence and automation for proactively monitoring, troubleshooting, and improving the Citrix end user experience with our guest speaker and partner from Goliath Technologies. So this is a very important as we move into a hybrid work style and more likely to see the issues which were never seen before. So we have a packed agenda. We can move to the next slide, Harvey. We have a packed agenda for next 30 to 40 minutes. So I request everyone to stay tuned. We will start with a quick intro about the Citrix Study program, and we'll understand the top marketing trends, what are the top priorities and challenges according to our customers, and how Citrix and Goliath can address them with the latest solutions. And at the end, we'll wind off with the Q&A session. Next slide, please. So to begin with, my name is Manjunath Agali. I work as Senior Manager for the technical marketing team in the Citrix Study program at Citrix. I'm your host and moderator for this webinar today. And I will also provide some key updates about the Citrix and Citrix Study program. So with me, I have the guest speakers from Goliath Technologies, Karen Ermer and Javi Lip. So Karen and Javi, I welcome you to this webinar. May I request you to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Karen Armour, responsible for sales and client success here at Goliath. Javi?
Hi, everyone. Manju, thanks for having us. My name is Avi Lip. I'm a tech consultant for Goliath. Primary responsibilities are implementations of our technology and training for client use. Happy to be here.
Great, great. I'm glad to have you on this webinar, both Karen and Avi. So before we move to the main agenda, there are a couple of housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded, and all the slides that we are presenting today, including the recording, will be shared with all the registrants and attendees. There is a question panel in the GoToWebinar or GoToWebinar window, so please use that section to post your questions. We will either answer them right away, if it is just a binary question to answer, or we will take them at the end of the session in the question and answer session. So with that, we'll get started. So Citrix Ready is a technology partner program. We help technology partners to become successful. So through this program, we work with several partners like Goliath to help develop the product, integrate the product, validate and approve the product with various Citrix products and services. So the Citrix Ready Marketplace is a one-stop place to evaluate partner verified products and solutions. The marketplace will actually help a customer to make the purchasing decision easy and better. So more about the marketplace and the program is the program is a time-tested one, time-tested program for over 15 years. We have partnered with over 700 partners and validated over 6,500 products. The program stands very tall to build the trust and create more choices to our customers and to bring in more value for the investments and time. The program is one of the leading technology partner program for all the customers in this ecosystem. So in a nutshell, the program is built and developed to help each other in this ecosystem and identify the right solutions for every customer needs and industry challenges that we may face every day in, day out. So let's go to the next slide, Javi. So this is a very important slide. What are the top technology priorities, right? So During the recent challenging times, we wanted to be one of your strategic business partner. This study from Forrester shows the top IT priorities compared with the top priorities prior to the pandemic. So it's interesting to note that the priorities themselves have not changed drastically, but what we do know is from talking to our customers is that the timelines to deliver on these priorities have greatly accelerated, while resources available to accomplish all these priorities has largely stayed the same. So this can be challenging, right? So, however, Citrix Workspace can help us here. Can you just click once, Harvey? Okay. Great. So if you can go back to the next previous screen, yeah. So previous screen, Harvey.
Next one.
Yeah. So if you look at the top 6 items in this list, Citrix Workspace is delivered to build in each of these areas. It could be security or privacy capabilities, or increasing the cloud option, or having the data analytics technology, redeploying of existing IT infrastructure, upgrading, or replacing, consolidating, or our legacy business and applications, right? So Citrix Workspace was purposely built to deliver in all these areas. So one platform that can get you moving in the right direction for all the top priorities. And also Goliath, who is our partner, provides a top-notch technology to ensure effective and efficient application availability, improve end user experience, monitoring and objective reporting and analytics beyond what we do through the Citrix Workspace. Do you want to add anything, Karen, here?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, right? One of the things that we're talking about today is the use of embedded intelligence and automation to achieve end user experience, but it also provides functionality for you to effectively baseline, move forward with IT enhancement projects, and be more agile and efficient as you go. And I think, Manju, that's something you're going to highlight here coming up.
Yeah, right. So yeah, let's go to the next slide, Javi. So there's an interesting, you know, 4 important pillars that are categories that we can see how Citrix and Goliath can work together and address them, right? So just for this webinar, we have considered these 4 categories, but we do more than this, right? So through the Citrix Workspace platform, you can maximize your employee experience and productivity irrespective of the data, resources, and workflows, while reducing the costly employee turnover. And you can also deliver consistent work experience by simplifying and securing user access regardless of the work location. And with the decision to move to the cloud or to adapt to the cloud and cloud services, it will also help to reduce IT complexity, not just for today, but also for the future investments as well. And very importantly, with current corporate data center, many of you are using the optimized security solutions, right? So with more services and applications are being delivered from the cloud, it's important to update your systems, which results in better performance and stronger security and availability of your applications. So that is where a partner like Goliath comes into picture by providing their top-notch technology for monitoring, for end user experience improvement, for reporting and analytics. So we're going to learn a lot about how they can address most of these issues. You want to add anything, Karen, here?
No, I think it's a good transition for us.
Great. Yeah, there's another transition like Karen mentioned. So as the slide explains, more of the context in itself. So long back, a decade ago, we were just using the physical desktops, right? So as there is a shift in every industry, Citrix has also helped organizations make the transition with our technologies, products and services. As IT priorities have changed, organizations have moved from using physical machines to the virtual desktop infrastructure, and now to the desktop as a service to offload management and to increase control and scale on demand. So Citrix is no longer a virtualization company. We have been offering various services and subscriptions than ever. And at the beginning of this month, we also announced how Citrix is actually delivering public cloud agnostic offerings, subscriptions, and packaging model. So one could learn more about the latest subscriptions offerings by visiting www.citrix.com. And before I turn it over to Goliath to understand the product and also to see the demo, I wanted to call out a few things. If you could move to the next slide, Abby. Goliath is our Citrix Ready partner for over a decade now, and they provide a lot of capabilities in monitoring and reporting and improving the end user experience, right? So, and they also have an interesting action that they could actually trigger before the issue occurs or before the end user experience there. So their products are Citrix Ready validated for both on-premises and for Citrix Cloud as well. They are part of our Citrix strategy for a very long time and been a great partner, supporting our new features, new capabilities, and services. So let's turn it over to Goliath, to Karen and Evie to hear more from them. Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Manju. Appreciate it. So as we get started today, we have a demonstration prepared to show you exactly how you can leverage Goliath along with Citrix to optimize, maximize end user experience, but thought it might be useful to talk just for a second about the challenges that you all are facing today, right? And as we talk to clients out in the market, we hear three things, right? And they work together in concert. The first is generically a shortage of absolutely everything, right? Time, money, expertise. Everyone is effectively being asked to do the traditional do more with less, and that's no different today and probably more so over the recent years than ever before. The second is the inherent complexity of the delivery infrastructure, right? There are lots of moving parts, whether it's Citrix or other virtualization technologies. These things are not often as simple as they appear to the end user, right? Your end user has a perspective that they connect to a virtualized desktop or application, and it's essentially a straight shot. And then the lack is when these two things combine, right? A shortage of time, money, expertise, and an inherent delivery infrastructure, that you need purpose-built technology. So let's break these each down just a little bit further. The shortage of resources and expertise. This is an infographic from our friends over at Citrix, right? And this talks just about Citrix expertise. There's an estimate of about 1.2 million experts needed based on clients and quantity, et cetera, but that there's 150 to 150 CTAs, and then the supply side, another 62 CTPs in market. So it stands to reason, right? There is a shortage of expertise, and that's before you get to all the other ways that you might be looking for more time, more resourcing, and more available funds to do things. So the shortage of resourcing is sort of well understood. Then let's talk about the complexity, and this is where the rubber sort of hits the road, if you will, right? Delivering Citrix or virtualization involves sometimes 15 plus unaffiliated vendors, all of whom have their own technology stacks and tooling, and many of you may have independent systems for these things today, whether it's network, servers, hypervisors, and the like. That is complex before you get to the left-hand side of the screen, which is the end user. Users are connecting in more places than ever before with environments, connectivity, and behaviors you can't necessarily control. And so when you talk about solving for end user experience, maximizing it, resolving issues, or being proactive, this is a very complex problem to solve for. And it lends itself to the next thing, which is this idea that you want to have purpose-built technology. And I won't show this video here, but we can certainly share it with the attendees afterwards. Citrix, along with Goliath, produced a video that tells you that there's absolutely a need for purpose-built technology, right? It's very difficult to take 12 plus vendors and cobble those things together to understand end user experience, whether you're looking to resolve for end user experience complaints like slow logons or session performance, or you're looking to optimize, you're looking to do a hybrid cloud environment, you're looking to understand what your experience is today and what it will be tomorrow as you do technology upgrades and refreshes. you do need purpose-built technology that's focused on this problem and set of challenges alone. So we're going to talk for just a moment about our approach and why it is different. And traditional troubleshooting or understanding of end user experience is something like this. Imagine you go out to your car, you have your friends or your family with you, you all get in the car, and you don't have your car keys. Now, you can assume that the car keys are in the house because that's how you got the car there to begin with. But troubleshooting means, where is the problem, right? Where do I go to look to find my car keys? And you historically have two choices. You can personally get out, leave everyone in the car, take a look around the house and hope you find the problem. The problem is you don't have the car keys. Or you can take everybody out of the car, send everyone to their own room and have them look. I've done this myself. Traditional troubleshooting, those are your choices. And your problem, if you will, looking at this particular image, is the problem could be the end user, it could be their endpoint, it could be their local connection, all the way back through to the application or desktop. Those are lots of areas to look for the car keys. What Goliath is providing is an end user experience monitoring platform that plugs in with Citrix and your other infrastructure components, gives you visibility across from the end user's perspective. So no longer having to look at individual components and infer end user experience, right? Everyone comes back from their specific room and says, it's not my room isn't the problem, right? This is like sitting in the car and in the car telling you, you left the keys 5 feet from you on the kitchen counter, right? The benefit is save time, save money, and improve collaboration between your internal IT teams, plus the added visibility of some of the things that are going on the far left in the dark blue, right? You may not have any visibility today to your remote worker local connection. You may understand their round trip time and their latency from tools you have, but how do you know whether they actually have enough connection to sustain good connectivity? So Avi will show you as we go through how some of those things work today. What the product does, and part of the demonstration we'll provide for you, is the ability to anticipate problems before they happen. And so that'll be the first part of the demonstration is, right, how do we get proactive? But you want to be able to troubleshoot them effectively when they do occur, right? You won't solve for all things all the time. Troubleshooting by way of real-time and historical data, deep and broad metrics across all of those individual silos that we just talked about, and then document root cause fixes, which is sometimes the most important part, right? You have an end user at home, they believe they have enough connectivity. How do you prove that that is the issue and get to working on actual resolution as opposed to some of the finger pointing that might naturally occur? So at this point, I'll hand over to Avi. We have 3 demonstrations we're going to walk through today along those lines. Anticipate, be proactive, troubleshoot. Let's get to a couple of scenarios that are most common, be it session performance or log on duration, and then document. Let's talk a little bit about how you can objectively quantify root cause and performance. Avi?
Sounds great. Thanks, Karen. So yeah, where we will start off with the demonstration is a proactive piece of the technology. A lot of the technology, as Karen just mentioned, is about being proactive and getting ahead of issues before users are impacted. And this first piece is certainly one of those portions of the technology, where what this is really doing is, think of it almost as a synthetic user that is continuously launching Citrix sessions, either from different office sites. You can have this deployed into the cloud to simulate for remote workers. Or on the left-hand side, you have these virtual users that are deployed onto a laptop, a VM, or a workstation at various locations. And from that endpoint, the technology is launching real Citrix sessions. So testing the network, testing the delivery infrastructure, testing the back-end systems, all of the components that are actually involved in the users being able to access their resources. And if there were to be an issue at any point in the process, say here with Active Directory, the IT professionals can receive real-time alerts that'll give them a buffer period to get ahead of those issues before users are impacted. Enterprise organizations will have this oftentimes launch at 5, 5:30, 6 in the morning, up until users start coming into the day just to confirm the availability of the resources. Healthcare will often have this launch on a 24/7 basis. And if there were to be any issues at all, whether you get a notification that there have been 3 consecutive failures from a particular office site at 5:30 in the morning, this is where you then go to begin your investigation as to why there's failed launches. And the page is broken down into a couple of different sections. At the top, you have a high-level dashboard view where the blue bars represent the average launch time, and then the yellow trend line is going to show the overall availability. You can always filter this based off of date range, specific locations where these launches are taking place from. A large bank customer of ours has this deployed to over 100 different bank locations, just continuously launching Citrix and their essential applications, which you'd also then be able to see here on the right-hand side to confirm that the users would have no issues accessing them. Then at the bottom of the page, you're going to have details of each of these launches, the date and time, the specific resource, and then ultimately whether the launch was successful or if it failed. Now in our lab environment here, we can see that these are all successful launches based off of all the green. Fantastic, peace of mind knowing that the users will be able to access their resources. But if there were to be a failed launch, you would see a red X designating at which specific stage the failure occurred at. And then you would want to click into the magnifying glass on the far left, where here you'll be able to see screenshot evidence of each step of the logon process. Gets you out of the habit of maybe asking the end user to replicate the issue because you have that evidence right here, as well as event logs. So if there's failed logons, it's often difficult to be able to pinpoint root cause because there's only so much information available to you. But by providing these logs and the screenshot evidence, we get you a lot closer to being able to immediately identify what was the issue. Now, this is just one proactive piece of the technology. The technology out of the box is automatically looking for hundreds of events, conditions, failure points, and thresholds that can impact user experience. So whether we're looking for latency for users, high resource utilization on servers, Active Directory issues, group policies, we're looking out of the box for all these conditions based off of insight from Citrix CTP, CTAs, and EUC experts on where to be looking throughout an entire IT environment and what to be looking for to be proactive in alerting the IT professionals where issues are manifesting. Now, with those modern rules, obviously able to be utilized in a proactive sense, but they're also going to drive some of the different dashboard views in the technology. So I think this first one that I'm sharing out is a great example of the embedded intelligence and automation of the technology. Because upon deployment, we will automatically discover the different servers that are contributing to the Citrix delivery infrastructure, map them out, and show the correlations between them. Those modern rules that I was just describing are then going to drive this as a heat map structure. So as issues start to rise on individual servers, they're going to change colors from green to red or orange, depending on the severity level of the alert. So oftentimes, the IT professional that's utilizing Goliath will have this up in a knock center, have it up on a large screen, or if they're working remotely, have it up on one of their monitors and be the first thing that they check when they log in for the day. See how's the environment performing. And let's say as an example that there are some broker service errors taking place on this particular delivery controller. It turns red. You'll want to click onto it. On the right-hand side, you're going to be able to see resource utilization, context-specific health checks, as well as any of the alerts that are firing based off of that embedded intelligence and automation in the technology. And this is just one view here from the infrastructure perspective, showing your NetScalers, storefront servers, delivery controllers, any other supporting servers in the environment. Top left, you can always toggle between multiple different Citrix sites. So whether you have an active passive setup, or say if you're a service provider and you're remotely managing a dozen clients, being able to see all their environment right from a single view is very helpful. Then you're able to drill down into the delivery layer where you're kind of looking at things more from a logical perspective. The delivery controllers mapped out to the delivery groups, to the machine catalogs and gold images if available. On the right-hand side, see information such as registered machines per delivery group, unregistered machines. Bottom right, what receiver version is out in the field. Is half of the environment still on an old receiver version and those users should be upgrading? Or do we want them on that because it works better with a particular application? And then being able to drill down all the way to the machine layer, taking it down to the hypervisor cluster and individual hypervisor hosts, where you'll then get average end user experience metrics, giving you the ability to correlate issues that could be impacting a large number of users, such as if there's high round trip time, right when there's high storage latency, take a screenshot of that, send it over to the storage team, ask if they're seeing anything on their end, because we're having some users that are having issues. Oh yeah, we're running some snapshot-based backups. We'll pause that for now, move it to another time, issue is resolved. And there's a variety of different dashboards right out of the box. That one's more Citrix delivery infrastructure specific, but any of the machines in the environment. So whether we're looking at Windows infrastructure servers, or if you're looking at the Citrix hypervisor layer, being able to see all of these machines in a single view and sort them based off CPU, memory, storage, see what alerts are firing off is very convenient to be able to understand, are there machines that are performing less than optimally in the environment. So now, where we've looked at everything from a proactive standpoint so far, also looking at things from an infrastructure perspective, a lot of times when IT professionals are dealing with users that complain about poor performance, it's something generic such as Citrix is slow, when in reality, it rarely is actually on Citrix's fault. It's usually something else in the IT stack that is really the main bottleneck. And this view that I'm sharing out right now is where the IT admin will typically go to begin their investigation as to what is the issue. Because here, we're going to show you all the Citrix sessions in the environment, both your active sessions, your historical sessions, and we don't average or roll up any of the data. So you're going to get the same level of granular detail for a session that took place a month ago, 2 months ago, as you would for an active session. So it allows the IT professional to, as an example, come to the top right, type in a user's name. You'll see how it dynamically filters based off of any text that is on the screen. So imagine that you are an enterprise organization supporting thousands of users. Joe is complaining, saying that Citrix is slow. And again, we already have the hypothesis that it's not a Citrix specific issue. You type in Joe's name, it pulls up all of his sessions. You then want to click into the user session. At that point, you're going to be provided with a summary screen that is going to show you all the high-level key data points that went into that user Citrix session. The server that they were accessing, the client endpoint machine, receiver version that's on the endpoint, the Citrix hypervisor that was supporting that particular user session, the client IP address. Here, in a single view, be able to see all of the components that contributed to that user accessing their Citrix server. So whether the endpoint machine, how they connected into the environment, was this an internal connection? Was it an external connection? The delivery controller brokered the session, AD, and the session host. Here, you'll have a high-level log-on summary breakdown, allowing you to quickly see, was it group policies or profile loading that were the main contributing factors? And then the rest of this view is going to be about in-session performance metrics and the key performance metrics that allow L1 or help desk to be able to pinpoint, usually within a click or two, what was the issue. Now, oftentimes, issues can be solved right from here, but if you notice across the top, there's a series of dedicated tabs, such as for log-on duration issues, deep and granular ICA and HDX metrics. So at the top right, bandwidth available on the client side, or how much bandwidth was actually being utilized by that end user. And at the bottom left, even diving into the individual virtual channels that make up the ICA protocol. And that's going to give us insight into user behavior, really. I mean, being able to understand, was audio bandwidth being leveraged within the session? Printer bandwidth for any print spoolers. Thin wire bandwidth, which is the Citrix display adapter. Was that user doing something graphically intensive in their session? So giving insight into user behavior, network, then we move into the data center, and we're going to be looking at the performance of that session host. So whether we're looking at a server OS or desktop OS machine, how was the performance correlated during the time frame of that user session? So I can see on April 12th at 2:35 p.m., CPU on this particular server was at 63%. At 2:40, memory was at 94%. Then diving into the hypervisor, where we're going to have resource utilization, the data stores that are attached, and any other VMs that are being supported by that same host, processes running on the session host, as well as any alerts, and then any application or system error or warning events that took place during the session. So really, what we are doing is pulling in data from a number of different sources. So whether it's Event Viewer, Task Manager, deep integration into the hypervisor layer, Windows, network metrics, user experience, all within a few clicks to give the IT professional the data that they need within a couple clicks to be able to pinpoint root cause and cut down on the time to resolution significantly. So what I'll do here is I'll just show a quick example, or I'll give two quick examples, time permitting, on how users of Goliath use this piece of the technology to pinpoint root cause. Let's take the example where there's a remote worker working from home connected to their home Wi-Fi. They're saying they're having issues. You click into round trip time, immediately can see when the user was having their issues. We have these data interpretation lines built into the technology. So even if someone who has entry-level Citrix experience can understand if round trip time is above that critical threshold line, that's when that user is likely experiencing latency within their session. So we now want to understand what was causing that latency. Was it a network related issue? Was it resource utilization or something that the user was actually doing within their session? And we give insight into all those areas. First place that I'd take a look at is network latency. And this is network latency from the ICA protocol itself. So this is not an ICMP or ping-based test, but it's an accurate representation of how much the network performance from the client machine all the way to the session host is impacting this user's round trip time. And what I can see is, once again, network latency spikes above that critical threshold line at the exact same time when round trip time was also increasing, indicating to me that there is a network related bottleneck that is driving that user's high round trip time. Now from here, we want to understand where within the network. Is it something on the client side? Is it something internal? And where we get our answer is with connection speed. This connection speed metric is the amount of bandwidth that is available for receiver the workspace app to consume wherever that user is working from. So in this particular situation, whether it's a remote worker working from home Wi-Fi amount of bandwidth that's available for Citrix to access for this user session, whether they're working on site and wired in, or if they're at a Starbucks connected via a mobile hotspot, the amount of bandwidth that is available for Citrix to access in that user session. And what we immediately can see is there is a huge drop in connection speed, going from over 50 megabits per second all the way down to about 3. 3 isn't enough to support a satisfactory Citrix session, let alone trying to adapt for that drastic of a drop. So in this particular scenario, users working from home connected to their own Wi-Fi at 2:30, is that when some kids got home and started streaming Xbox or Netflix and restricted the bandwidth that was available for Joe to access within his Citrix session? It immediately gives you that level of detail without deploying anything to the endpoint machine itself of, was it a client-side connectivity issue? So that's a common example for in-session performance issues, being able to identify client-side, but say if it was resource utilization, you're able to see that all in the same single view. So now let's say that it wasn't even about in-session performance, it was actually about log-on duration. We're going to give you over 30 different stages of the log-on process, showing you what's happening at the brokering stages down here at the bottom, the delivery control at the bottom left, receiver at the bottom right, and breaking down each individual stage. And then up at the top, the log-on stage details from the session host. So client server validation, authentication, can drill into that and see which OUs that user was a part of, the domain controller that authenticated the user, as well as each group policy down to the policy name and how long each one took to execute. So now this is just in our lab environment. I have a screenshot that I think really does a good job of painting the picture of how our clients do use this information. So what you can see here, say you get imagine you get an alert about some high logons. You pull up the user session, you see that the logon time took over 280 seconds. Immediately see that profile loading took over 180 of those seconds. Come down to group policies, drill into that. In this particular case, able to see there's a VDI drive mapping policy that was incorrectly mapped out. The IT admin was able to immediately identify that, knew where to focus their attention, was able to cut down, in certain cases, logon duration by over 80% because of this level of granular detail. And there's no scripting that's required to run in order to be able to get this type of granular detail. So now that we've talked about the proactive piece, we've talked about the reactive piece of being able to analyze a user session either in real time or historically to understand what could be causing those performance bottlenecks. Now what's going to be helpful? Being able to document that information. So whether it's run reports on demand, daily, weekly, monthly, you're able to then be able to have this information available for you in a variety of different formats. So whether you want to have the data integrated with a third-party system, or if you want to have some dashboards for executives, such as this end user experience scorecard, we're collecting this broad and deep subset of data that allows you to document the information accordingly. So in this particular report here, you're going to be able to see on the right-hand side all of the users in the environment where they're having a user experience score based off of the critical metrics such as round trip time, ICA latency, network latency, connection speed, and all of these are going to be scored based off the legend on the bottom left. And immediately I can see, hey, Cameron, Jane, and James, they're the ones who are having the worst experience in this environment. And we can see that it's being caused by network latency. Is it because they're working from a particular office site? Dive into the technology and analyze it some more. But immediately upon deployment, you're going to be able to get an overall user experience score that is often used as a benchmark. You get a score of a 70. We see that there's areas to improve network latency. Dive into the technology, make some changes in the environment. All of a sudden, that 70 moves up to an 85. We're making progress. So overall, it's really with Goliath combining data from so many different areas of the IT stack, whether we're looking at proactively, using it for troubleshooting or reporting, to give the IT professionals the information and data that they need to make objective decisions on improvements that can be made in the environment or what has been the bottleneck. And with that, I'm now going to open the floor for any questions and comments.
Javi, that was a really nice demo and very, very constructive and very nicely demoed. Honestly, trust me, yeah.
Thank you, man.
The best demo I've seen in the recent past.
Thanks.
Great. With that, we'll open for the question and answer session. So to all the attendees, if you have any questions about whatever we talked, be it on Citrix, be it on the demo, be it on the technology, be it on the product, be it anything, nothing is silly or nothing is not important. Everything is important to understand, right? So please go ahead and post your questions. We have 5 more minutes to answer all your questions. With the interest of time, I'm going to take the first question. There is a question from a gentleman. Can we get a copy of this recording? Absolutely. You will get a copy of this recording within the next 24 hours. So you'll get the slides and the recording of this webinar that we presented. There is a question. Can you also monitor traditional desktop environments?
Absolutely.
Great. So the answer is absolutely yes, we can monitor the traditional desktop environments. Great, thanks, Javi. And there is another question. Do we have to install anything on an endpoint? If yes, how long does it take to install?
Great question. So everything that I showed today, you do not need to deploy any technology to the endpoint machines themselves. When you think about enterprise organizations, it's a lot more convenient to be able to deploy agents onto their infrastructure services as opposed to having to deploy anything to the endpoint machines themselves. Now, as far as how long does it take to deploy, usually we can get the technology up and running in just about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I do have a slide here that can help out kind of explain that a little bit, where what'll happen is we'll automatically discover and deploy the different Citrix servers. As far as the agent deployment, that can be, we're gold image ready, so that can go right into the gold image. And it'll automatically start pulling in the different machines, be able to be looking for all those end user experience metrics, the monitoring rules. This will automatically be able to configure and pull in that data upon deployment. And then already by that first hour and a half or 2 hour call that we just do virtually, we're already collecting data by the end of it.
Great. Thanks, Harvey.
Of course.
And there is a question, probably you may have already answered it. Do you support both on-prem Citrix LTR versions and Citrix Cloud versions?
We do. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So I'll just elaborate on that. So Goliath products are verified for both on-prem Citrix products and as well as on Citrix Cloud services. So that's the reason I mentioned in one of my earlier slides that they are Citrix ready for both on-prem and for Citrix Cloud services. So they do the monitoring and all the features that Heavy demonstrated today on both Citrix Virtual Apps on Desktop for on-prem and for Citrix Virtual Apps on Desktop Cloud services.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, right, whether it's a migration for on-premise to cloud, hybrid, a technology upgrade on the underpinnings of this, part of what Avi talked about at the end with the data and analytics is not just for troubleshooting purposes, right? If you're going to go through a Citrix upgrade or a migration, you want to understand, quantify what your performance is today. And that isn't just always about the underlying infrastructure. You may have plenty of servers. Is the user experience good or not, right? Give yourself an objective score. And then as you go through that process of upgrading and updating, you have a scorecard afterwards, right? So we have lots of clients who use it for objective baselining as they go through upgrade projects, migrations, or even hybrid cloud sort of environments. So you're going to get the same functionality, single product, and then all the data and analytics to go with it.
Yeah, thanks, Karan, for elaborating on that. That's really helpful. There's another question about the cost. We can keep it confidential if you want to handle it via email, but the question is about what's the approximate cost per user for this solution?
Yeah, so we would certainly love to talk about it. It depends on volume and quantity. The good news is that we can offer both traditional perpetual and subscription-based licensing. And we would talk through your personal environment depending on how many servers, VDIs, and users you have.
Great. So, gentlemen, whoever asked this question, we will pass on this question to Karen and Avi with your email address. So they will reach out to you to provide more information and also to gather more information before they answer your question. So there is no single answer to your question, but definitely this is something that we need to discuss and then answer. I'm going to take this question, but it may sound it's incomplete, but the question is, how could we learn more DAS? Gentlemen asking these questions, please try to rephrase this question again. We'll take this question again. So there's another question. I'll move to the next one. How is the solution licensed and associated cost? Again, related to cost. Do you have any additional information, Karen or Heavy?
Yeah, so licensing can be done kind of primarily one of two ways based on infrastructure components, so how many servers and how many elements you'd like to monitor, or in a per user basis. And those can be done either perpetually or traditional license plus 20% annual maintenance or subscription.
Great. Thanks, Karan. There's another question asking about, do you offer free trial evaluation versions?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can support you through that process. There's a form sign up on our website, or you can certainly contact one of us today, but we absolutely offer 30-day free evaluations.
Great. There's another question. Again, it looks like it's incomplete, but I'll try to understand and read it in the way it makes sense. So, is this an appliance only one or more? Is appliance available on all hypervisors and public cloud? Does that make sense, Karen?
Yeah. So it is not an appliance. It's a software platform. Avi could talk a little bit about what the console. We also offer a hosted version. So if you'd like it as software as a service, we can do that. And it does support all public clouds.
Yeah, perfect. Great. So we're open for 2 more minutes to take additional questions if anybody has any questions. All right. So while I'm waiting, I just want to rephrase that although all the slides that we presented today and the recording will be shared within the next 24 hours, and it will be also posted on Citrix Ready YouTube channel so that you can make the best use of it. Share the link with your colleagues, friends, and your management for making a decision. And if you want to talk to us, you can reach out to citrixready@citrix.com. I'm going to repeat it again, citrixready@citrix.com. That's the easiest way to remember and reach us. We will then forward the request appropriately to Karen and to Harvey to answer your questions. So on the count of 3, I'm going to take one last question if there are any, otherwise we're going to close. Going once, twice. All right. So there are no questions. Avi and Karen, it was very nice to have you here on this webinar, and thank you for the wonderful demo and everything that you presented today. So to all the ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this webinar. It was great to have you here, and I look forward for presenting another webinar in the coming days. And thank you so much for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Manju.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.